Welcome to our daily reflection for this Thursday, July 31st. And today, the scriptures are a good deal about the house of God, and the idea that God wants to dwell amidst us. He wants to be with us. And that's really the whole theme of temple and presence of God. It's all about the overarching purpose of God creating us, to make us for Him, that we may be with Him in relationship and in love. And so the reading here from Exodus 40, the whole story of the Exodus, the whole redemption, all the plagues and all the drama is all about the fact that God desires to dwell in the midst of His people. And so we see as the last scenes, Moses sets up the Ark of the Covenant, the tent of meeting, and God's presence comes down in a glory cloud and fills the tent and the ark. God is to be with His people. That's the whole purpose of the liturgy and of the Exodus. And then we see this echoed in the beautiful Psalm, Psalm 84, which is a pilgrimage psalm, which every pilgrim desires to go to Jerusalem, to be at the temple, to be at the place where God is present. And so that becomes the place that every pilgrim desires to make a journey, to visit Jerusalem, and most importantly, the temple where God dwells, as we heard about. And so Psalm 84 is all about how all of our lives are a pilgrimage to be with God. And that's what Jesus refers to in this parable. He teaches about the final judgment of separating the wicked from the righteous, and that the righteous will be separated out in the great nets, like a fisherman's net. The fish that are caught, we will be like those fish caught up in the net and taken up to heaven to be with God in His heavenly temple. And that's what we want. And so we need to be the righteous, because the wicked will not dwell with God, and God will not dwell with the wicked. And so that's a warning for us to desire to be accounted with the righteous. And then Jesus gives a little parable about scribes, those who are trained to be disciples of Jesus, that they are to require a wisdom, just like a householder who brings out of his storehouse things new and things old. And nova et vetera, as St. Jerome translated it in Latin, the new and the old. And so to be a wise disciple of Christ is to bring out of the treasure house things that are both new and old, because not everything new is valuable and not everything old is valuable, but there's some things that are old, traditional, that are good, that we want to retain. And there's some things that are new, that just because it's new doesn't mean it's bad, that also might be of value. But not everything old is good and not everything new is bad. There's good and bad with both. And so a scribe trained for the kingdom has to have the agility and the judgment to discern the good and the bad. And they take a combination of what is old and what is new. And I think this is so important in the life of the church, because in the world, generally, everyone thinks, well, if it's new, it must be good. And you don't find out that something's toxic and bad or problematic. You just this rush to accept if it's new, it must be progressive, it must be cutting edge, it must be good. And not everything new is good. And we're going to learn that, like anything with any new form of technology, we'll learn that with all the new advancements with technology. Think about the smartphone. There was a lot of bad things with social media and the smartphone. And so we have to be discerning. But likewise, there's a temptation for Christians to want to just hold on to the old and be traditionalistic, right? And to have a traditionalism, not just holding to what is good in tradition that we have to keep, but to hold on to everything just for the sake of being old. And that's not good. That's not what Jesus calls us to. We have to hold to what is valuable and true and good in the tradition, but we also have to be willing at the same time to embrace what is new. And so we try to do that here at the Augustine Institute, where we use the new technology and video and platforms to use those in the good way to use the gospel, but we also hold on to the old that is good and true, like the church's teaching and doctrines that are unchanging. And so the means of teaching and communicating those ancient truths can be new and innovative, but those teachings themselves are ever ancient, and yet we want to make them ever new in the way we present them. And so we have to be wise in being both old and new. So let's think in our lives, in what ways am I not holding on to what is old and true? In what ways am I not embracing what is new? That God wants to challenge me to use wisdom, because that's what He expects of His disciples. May the Lord bless and keep you.
This daily reflection is brought to you thanks to the generous support of the Mission Circle. Join the Mission Circle to help Catholics worldwide understand, live, and share their faith. Sign up at missioncircle.org today.